Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Before we begin, because in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online and Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, they reached a settlement with the United States government where they implemented new policies meant to dodge responsibilities and scapegoat creators, meaning I have to ensure everyone understands this video is not meant for children. It is not marketed towards kids, it's not advertised towards kids. Doctor Who is a family show that kids can watch, but this video, as with all the videos on my channel, are looking at it from an adult perspective and therefore will be discussing adult topics, so viewer discretion is advised. It's the 14th of April 2021. We're starting to look at Whispers of Terror, a Big Finish story that actually is really special in a lot of ways. Now, it's the third ever Doctor Who release, and you can kind of tell by the early style of cover currently on screen, being sort of that old Photoshop job. But this is the first Big Finish story that actually tries to be experimental, at least a little bit. Gary Russell directed this one, and while he is responsible for basically directing quite a lot of the main range up until I think 2007-ish. It's a very, very old style of direction, and you can tell that it's one from Gary Russell so early on. But where it actually succeeds really, really well, and where you get a lot of good stuff, is actually in the fact that it tried to be experimental. This is a script from Justin Richards, who most people know him as the guy who does a bunch of standard Who, but this entire story takes place, in a place called the Museum of Aural Antiquities, with the idea being that sound bites are being saved, for antiquity purposes. And I think that's actually a really interesting idea for a setting, and it does a really good job of setting up what that setting sort of wants to be and is, I suppose, meant to be. This is one of those weird little things where you have the entire story all being basically built up around a man who has died. This man called Vistine Crane, who, was a politician running for a presidency. Originally an actor who was in a play called The Good Soldiers, which is actually a reference to one of the VNAs. Big Finish did actually do a lot, and still kind of does a lot of big deep cut Doctor Who references. This man is dead, and someone seems to be changing his sound files instead of something that makes sense. His sound files are being altered in a way that they essentially mean something different. Now, there are two people who break into the museum who the Doctor and Peri actually come upon by accident in this episode, but that's the thing. And then his candidate for vice president, Beth Parnell, played by Lisa Bowerman, is essentially there. It's essentially a murder mystery told. Now, where this episode really does shine is actually the Doctor and Peri. This is the first time Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant worked together for Doctor Who since 1986. And so, a story like this feels, especially for the two of them, feels very much like we're recapturing sort of that acerbic Six and Perry duo, though Big Finish have already tempered it quite a bit, especially for this episode. It's very much tempered to the Doctor and Peri are actually close friends. And that actually is a lot of fun. And this actually has a really good cast. The curator of the museum is played by Peter Miles, who gives this slimy performance. You may remember him from being in, the Silurians, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and Genesis of the Daleks. He did, a lot of, he did, 3 Big Finishes. If I remember correctly, he was also in the Paradise of Death, I think. This is the only Big Finish Doctor Who audio that he did, though he was in the Sarah Jane spinoff, I, Davros, and an episode of of Benny's Range, I think, like, in the later single releases. And, he has just such a great and distinct voice that, whenever he shows up, it's a lot of fun. And really, that's what Whispers of Terror Part 1 accomplishes. It sets up a story full of a lot of fun. It's not perfect by any means, but it is definitely a good start to a story. And, just something where you can really, really get a good sense of everything going on. So overall, I'm going to have to give Part 1 of Whispers of Terror an 8 out of 10. Alright, it is the 15th of April, 2021. I just finished listening to Part 2 of Whispers of Terror. This is the episode where we actually get to see a lot more things, but I think it actually slows down the pace quite a bit, and that's a little detrimental to the plot. Only because this is, a rather, a rather slow-ish story where you get to see a sense of, a sense of character, but also a sense of things going to be different. It's very much inspired by the idea of sound being this episode's sort of medium / gimmick that we are playing around, and what tries to be essentially in-depth analysis of of that sort of idea of being sound and hearing things through sound, but not necessarily getting us what we need for the story. It's one of those weird stories where there's, just about everything coming right together, and you have, all the characters playing off each other, but not in such a way that it perfectly makes sense or really even works. It's a way where you have, you have the Doctor, and Peri investigating of Peter Miles' character being a total scumbag, and you have just about everything that the story does is basically set up and built around all these, these characters doing these things, and it's not really perfect. It's kind of flawed. This is an episode where it kind of becomes standardized, and I mean, like I said, Peter Miles's performance is perhaps the best performance of all of them, and just the best at being suitably creepy, but also, enough where you get the sense for who he is, what his deal is, what his characterization kind of means, like what he's trying to do. You have, a lot of deepening of the conspiracy here, where the characters, essentially have their, are in their element and in their, are at the point of being, kind of just who they are, and that sort of interaction and just that aspect of the plot is something where you can get something just a little on the different side, a little a little different, and a little more of a a little more kind of brought together into a full-on story where you get the characters, and you get sort of what they want, what they need, and you can really see a lot of where the story will eventually go, and of course end up with the different sort of things that are going on, and sort of people being framed, and really having sort of just the sound creature and like sort of it as a virus being our villain. So overall, I'm gonna have to give part 2 of Whispers of Terror a 7 out of 10. Alright, it is the 16th of April 2021. I just finished listening to part 3 of Whispers of Terror. And with each episode, things kind of just go down a little bit in my estimation. It's one of those stories where you kind of have something that isn't great, isn't always amazing. I love the idea of the sound creature, and trying to do something experimental, especially this early and Big Finish's, production sort of line. Again, this was released late 1999, within that first year that, this was the third Doctor Who production they released. And I even think, the third one that was ever actually produced, meaning that, you get a good sense that this was, meant to be something, something a little, just a little different. It's like, right, let's try to do something something there. It's and try to do something different and cool with the characters. The Doctor and Peri are great, but I don't think in this episode they really get a whole lot to do. Um, they're just sort of brought back um, together and kind of just are in right the middle of of the story. Um, it's sort of just the let's try to do something cool and interesting with these characters, but we don't really have uh, a whole lot there that we make different or really even give a full you know a full a full story for. It's very much the Doctor and Peri having sort of their own adventure, trying to do the mystery, while Lisa Bowerman's Parnell is sort of taking power. I will say that um, she is a a great villain. Lisa Bowerman is always fun in her performances. We'll eventually get to see her playing a companion, um, as she's most well known for playing Bernice Summerfield, but getting to play the villain, uh, uh, you know, you know, um, you know, it's it's the very very weird sort of idea that the plot plays around with Parnell as the villain, Parnell being a complete sadist, wanting power. Um, you know, it's it's a very it's a very very different type. But it's um, a very different sort of thing, um, with with um, with the um, with everything, um, with everything as with everything as it is. And of course, Colin Baker is great. And Nicola Bryant gets a chance to shine as Peri here at least a little bit, because she is the one to try to figure out things that are going on. That's what her character kind of is here, but a lot of this episode is just kind of samey. They haven't quite worked out how to, I think, really how to do the audio drama of, actually letting the audio speak for itself instead of specifically pointing things out, which means which means which means that everything um you know um it's everything that the story is
meant to be, and sort of just doing. Um, as you know, the entire idea is the whisper itself is kind of the plot, but it doesn't really function completely as a plot. It's very standard Who. It's this is an enjoyable episode. It's very very fun, um, but it is kind of just brought down a little bit by being a little slow, not quite properly paced, and just the early production hiccups of any of any new production company, and you can really tell they weren't quite sure what they were doing with the Doctor Who license yet. Um, so overall, I'm gonna have to give part 3 of Whispers of Terror a 6 out of 10. All right, it is the 17th of April 2021. I just finished listening to part 4 of Whispers of Terror, the final episode. That is. This is definitely a great a great little a great little episode. It's slightly better than the third one, mainly because it's one where we go down to uh you know this is this is an episode where it becomes sort of the murder mystery, and you kind of know that it's Beth Purnell right behind it. And though I will say that just just so you get you get the entire the entire the entire story coming to an end, and her sort of comeuppance isn't uh, uh, it's just about everything that the story sort of is meant to be done. Just as this very very different it's just this very different sort of thing where she ends up sort of being killed right at the end, when there's when the ending goes for essentially a bit where she's sort of in gets away, like the Doctor leaves her to be essentially arrested, and it all ends with the Sound Creature, aka Vistine Crane, being revealed to actually not be evil, but actually is trying to avenge his. I guess you have to say his, as he was a man, now he's sound. Um, you know, there's, there's this very, this very, this very different sort of thing with how the scene crane is presented. Um, there's uh, it's it's a very it's a very different uh sort of story, um you know because because of the uh, entire um you know the entire story, uh as the entire story uh is being done, uh as uh it's a very different sort of story, and just sort of seeing sort of the political upheaval is actually really fun, especially with the Doctor finding out, oh, the evil creature isn't actually an evil creature, and doing that is um, really a lot, um, a lot of fun. Um, you know, it's this very uh, it's this very different sort of story where things are, you know, messed around, and yeah, I really do enjoy it. It's not perfect, but it's very much sort of an A for effort scenario, uh, where everything is done, um, you know, uh, it is being just sort of done with the entire story. So it's just a great little um, little thing, uh, where um, you know there's it's just a very different thing. So I'm gonna have to give part 4 of Whispers of Terror a 7 out of 10. So, that being said, we add the scores and average them out to give Whispers of Terror a final score of 7 out of 10, making it a good, solid story, though it's not perfect. So, thank you everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and join me next time when we take a look at another main range with the 6th Doctor and Peri, all about words with Doctor Who-ish.